To match Elon Musk's wealth based on an average salary, you would have to work for 30 million years. That is halfway between our time and that of the last Tyrannosaurus Rex. For every second that passes in this video, Elon Musk earns about $3,000. In less than 6 minutes, he will have already amassed $1 million, enough to buy your dream home and a car with the remainder. He is the first person in history to reach a net worth of $500 billion, thanks to companies such as Tesla, SpaceX, Twitter, Neuralink, and The Boring Company. If his wealth continues to grow at the same rate, he could become the first Spanish-speaking billionaire in history. However, even though he is currently the richest person in absolute terms, that does not mean he is the richest of all time. If we look back, there were individuals who controlled a far greater share of the known world. So let us discover who the richest person in history was. We will begin with a very unique case: Pablo Escobar. In just 1 decade, he built a highly effective network that transformed an illegal product into one of the most profitable businesses in the world. In other words, he was a logistics king. His personal wealth is estimated at around $30 billion, adjusted for inflation, a staggering figure, yet still far short of Elon Musk's wealth. However, unlike the other figures in this video, Escobar's wealth did not rely on stocks or political influence. It was pure cash. He is considered the person who amassed the most money in history. He spent over $1,000 a week on rubber bands to bundle the stacks. He lost nearly $2 billion annually due to the money rotting, being eaten by rats, or suffering moisture damage. He possessed so much cash that, while on the run, he burned $2 million simply to start a fire and keep his family warm. In contrast, Elon Musk's wealth, like that of any modern billionaire, is not held in a bank or a vault. It comes down to the estimated value of his companies, a value that fluctuates daily based on market forces. But let us go back to the early 20th century when the United States was an emerging nation and oil had begun to power the world. In that context, Rockefeller built an empire that controlled nearly 90% of refined oil across the entire country. His company, Standard Oil, grew so large that the government eventually forced it to split into 34 separate companies. Among them were names that still resonate today: Exxon, Mobil, and Chevron. Yet, here's the irony. This breakup, intended to curb his power, actually made him even wealthier. Rockefeller retained shares in all the new companies, and they all surged in value on the stock market. By 1913, his net worth exceeded $900 million, equivalent to 2% of the United States GDP. For comparison, Elon Musk's wealth today represents 1.6% of the US GDP. According to Guinness World Records, Rockefeller was the wealthiest person in history, with an inflation-adjusted fortune estimated at approximately $631 billion. He used a portion of his wealth to found the University of Chicago, which eventually became one of the world's most prestigious institutions, garnering 101 Nobel Prizes and 27 Pulitzer Prizes. Moreover, Rockefeller was the first to turn industrial capitalism into a science. Until then, business was chaotic, characterized by family-run firms, limited accounting, and unpredictable prices. Rockefeller changed the rules of the game with 3 ideas that defined the 20th century. First, he standardized operations. Consistency equals profitability. This concept would later be adopted by giants like McDonald's. Second, he controlled prices and crushed competitors. By dominating the entire supply chain, he could drive prices down to rock-bottom levels, raising them again once the competition had vanished. Third, he laid the foundations of modern corporate power. Rockefeller was the first to realize that a company need not die with its founder. It could function as an independent machine, with executives stepping in to replace visionary entrepreneurs. That is why he was not only the richest man of his era, but also the one who taught the world how to be wealthy. In that same decade, another man changed the way the world moves forever. Henry Ford didn't invent the car, but he did invent how to mass produce it with a simple yet brilliant idea: the assembly line. In addition, Ford doubled his workers' wages and reduced the workday from 9 to 8 hours. The result of these 3 measures was a significant reduction in the assembly time of the Ford Model T, which dropped from 12 hours to just an hour and a half, and whose price fell from $950 to $290. For the first time, the workers who manufactured the product could afford to buy it. Within a few years, millions of people began living outside the cities and commuting to work by car. Thus, the suburbs, traffic, and the modern daily routine were born. Henry Ford not only transformed industry, but also helped create a new middle class capable of saving, consuming, and dreaming of a better life. His wealth amounted to 1.3% of the United States GDP, just slightly less than Elon Musk's wealth. A few decades later, another prominent figure emerged: Andrew Carnegie. Born into poverty in Scotland, he immigrated to the United States with virtually nothing. Lacking education, connections, or capital, he steadily climbed the ladder until, half a century later, he became the world's steel magnate. Carnegie was the modern world's first great self-made billionaire. His company built skyscrapers, bridges, and railway lines that connected continents. In 1901, when he sold Carnegie Steel in the largest business transaction in history up to that time, his wealth was equivalent to 1% of the United States GDP. Yet, the most remarkable part came later. So, rather than dying as the richest man alive, he chose the opposite. He established 2,500 public libraries, funded universities, and penned a phrase that would become his hallmark: "The man who dies rich dies disgraced." Until then, the wealthy had donated for religious or moral reasons, ye and me, often as a merely symbolic gesture. Carnegie changed that forever. He transformed philanthropy into a professional mission and a moral obligation for capitalists, a vision later embraced by other giants such as Rockefeller himself. That era was also a time when czars still existed. The last of them was Nicholas II of Russia, a man who ruled over 1/6 of the planet and, theoretically, owned almost everything. Lands, mines, banks, taxes, railways, and armies legally belong to him, not the state. His wealth is estimated today at around $300 billion, yet his true power cannot be reduced to a single figure. He has controlled the oil of the Caucasus, the diamonds of the Urals, and the lives of more than 150 million people. Yet it was precisely this immense wealth that sealed his fate. In 1917, the Bolshevik Revolution toppled him, and the following year, he and his family were executed in a Siberian cellar. A century earlier, a family had transformed money into a dynasty. It began in a poor neighborhood in Frankfurt with Mayor Amschel Rothschild, a currency trader who realized something revolutionary. Trust could travel faster than gold. He sent his 5 sons to major European cities: London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt. Together, they established something unprecedented: a synchronized financial network featuring their own private couriers, encrypted codes, and even carrier pigeons. While armies took months to transmit orders, the Rothschild family was conveying financial information within days. They coordinated transfers, lent to governments, and financed entire campaigns such as the United Kingdom's effort during the Napoleonic Wars. They established history's first multinational banking system, in a sense, the first global banking network. They financed wars, coronations, and the construction of the Suez Canal. Decades ago, no European government could declare bankruptcy without a member of the Rothschild family knowing about it first. Their combined wealth had grown so immense that, in relative terms, it surpassed the wealth of most people in the countries of that era. Around 1850, it is estimated that the family controlled the equivalent of between and $600 billion today. The Rothschilds were the wealthiest family in history, though not on an individual basis. Nathan Rothschild, the brother based in London, was the richest among them, with a fortune estimated at around $20 billion in today's terms. Yet centuries before the Rothschilds, there was a man who transformed loans into political power. He transformed the family business into a financial empire that dominated Europe, trading in metals, spices, and credit. He was the first banker to lend on a large scale to kings and popes, securing in return monopolies on mining, particularly in copper and silver. His loans financed wars, crusades, and the very election of Charles V as emperor to the Holy Roman Empire. In 1500, Fugger lent the Vatican the funds needed to build the new St. Peter's Basilica, the Sistine Chapel, and other structures. A German archbishop at the time had incurred massive debts to Fugger to purchase his ecclesiastical titles. To repay the debt, the Pope authorized him to sell indulgences, divine forgiveness in exchange for money. This fundraising campaign sparked the anger of a monk named Martin Luther, and his protest ultimately led to the birth of Protestantism. Yet, Fugger did not merely amass a vast fortune, he also left his mark on society. In 1521, he established the Fuggerei, a small, walled enclave in Augsburg, to house families in need. 5 centuries later, it is still inhabited by 150 believers, and the rent remains the same as it was 5 centuries ago, 88 cents per year. In return, the tenants must meet only one condition: to pray 3 times a day. Its wealth was equivalent to 2% of the entire European economy, a figure that today would amount to approximately $400 billion. While bankers in Europe were lending money to kings, there was a king in Africa who had no need to borrow from anyone. Mansa Musa, the emperor of the Mali Empire, controlled the gold mines of Bambouk and Wangara, which at the time produced nearly half of the world's gold. In 1324, he embarked on the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca, accompanied by 60,000 people, 12,000 slaves, and 80 camels, each laden with 140 kilograms of gold. In every city he passed through, he distributed gold to showcase the wealth of his empire and gain allies. The problem was that he flooded the markets with so much gold that its value plummeted. It took regional economies 12 years to recover. If his wealth were translated into today's figures, it would amount to roughly $400 to $500 billion. To many, he is the richest person in history, a man so powerful he could trigger inflation across an entire continent. Yet 2,000 years ago, there lived a man who needed neither stocks nor banks. After defeating Mark Antony and Cleopatra in a civil war, Caesar Augustus became the first emperor of Rome. Among the spoils of war, he retained Egypt as his personal property. Its mines, storehouses, and tax revenues all belonged to him. He exercised direct control over the imperial treasury, the gold and silver mines, Spain and Egypt, and the tribute from all conquered provinces. In his time, the Roman Empire accounted for about 25% of the global economy, and it is estimated that 1/5 of that wealth was under his personal control, meaning nearly 5% of the global GDP was in the hands of a single man. In relative terms, he was the wealthiest man in recorded history. If we apply these figures to the present day, his wealth would amount to approximately $5 trillion. Yet this figure does not represent mere money, but something far more powerful: absolute economic dominance. Looking back in time, we find a king whose wealth is recorded in the world's oldest text, King Solomon. According to the Bible, he received 666 talents of gold annually, equivalent to approximately 22 tons. In addition to tribute, trade, and gifts from other kingdoms. With this power, he built the legendary temple in Jerusalem and transformed Israel into a commercial hub of the ancient Middle East. His wealth today is estimated at between $1 and $2 trillion, though myth often outweighs fact in this regard. What seems certain is that no ancient monarch amassed as much power and wealth as he did. So who was truly the richest person in history? In terms of absolute figures, the leader is Elon Musk. If we are talking about cash, the crown goes to Pablo Escobar. In terms of percentage of GDP, John Rockefeller dominated his era like no other. When looking at family wealth, the Rothschilds are unrivaled. If we measure the capacity to transform entire economies, no one compares to Mansa Musa. And when it comes to controlling the global economy, Caesar Augustus stands in a league of his own. However, if we consider the impact on the daily lives of millions of people, Henry Ford was the most influential. Yet this ranking reveals something deeper. Absolute wealth does not exist. All wealth is relative to its context. Mansa Musa was rich in gold, but he lived in a world without electricity or vaccines. Solomon built temples of gold, yet he knew nothing of gears or the number 0. Even Elon Musk, with all his billions, relies on something as volatile as trust in his companies. So don't worry, wealth isn't everything.